Hi, everyone. I'm Katrina Manigan. I lead the city's Energize Denver initiative. I'm in the Denver Department of Public Health and Environment. And the city has a goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 80% by 2050 in our city. And yeah, so buildings, the commercial and multifamily buildings in the city are responsible for 57% of those greenhouse gas emissions. So my job as the energy efficient buildings lead is to help improve the energy efficiency of buildings across the city. That's the goal of Energize Denver. So thank you all for being here. I'm really excited about this event because it's a chance to learn more about a great tool in our toolbox for a way we can improve energy efficiency of buildings across the city. So Energize Denver, as most of you are probably aware, one of the really key pieces of that is the benchmarking requirement. So this year, or last year in 2017, all buildings over 50,000 square feet had to measure their energy performance using Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And I think you're all a very familiar room with that tool, but of course, it's like the miles per gallon rating for your car. And now we have that information. We had 90% of the buildings comply out of 1,800 buildings, 90% compliance in our first year. And all the data is now public at energizedenver.org. You can find out the Energy Star score of buildings across the city, which is really exciting. So now we have a baseline. We have to actually improve the efficiency of all those buildings now. So I'm really excited about this event to learn more about how to do that. Thank you so much to Stu Ogilvie for hosting us here in his building today.
Yay!
What a gorgeous space, right? Awesome views. And we're going to learn about how efficient it is. So we're all about pace, so I'm not going to give any overviews on that. Everyone here will tell you. So thank you so much to all of the sponsors of the event, SRS, A&B Bank, Group 14, and Integro. They're all here as panel members to tell you about the PACE project that they worked on in this building. I want to also thank Candle 3. Candle 3's proprietary net zero design program provides a clean energy solution that will significantly cut costs and provide predictability. They analyze facilities' energy demands by evaluating 5 key parameters to develop a customized solution. So thank you to Candle 3 for sponsoring also. With that, I'll introduce our first panelist. Brian McCarter from SRS is the CEO and administrator of the Colorado Co-PACE program. Brian is founder and CEO of Sustainable Real Estate Solutions. SRS is the administrator of the Colorado C-PACE program and is the industry leader in C-PACE administration nationwide, currently supporting programs in California, Colorado, Connecticut, Ohio, Oregon, Rhode Island, Utah, and Virginia. With that, I'll pass it to Brian.
Okay. I thought, according to Kirsten's agenda, I would start off and tell a little bit about the PACE as a nationwide market. I thought I would provide a few relative statistics and then speak to how it's going here in Colorado to date. So on a national landscape, PACE is now active in 19 different states. Some of those states are statewide programs, like here in Colorado, which I would say we're fortunate to have that here in Colorado. Some states, it's more of a regional, county by county, or in some cases even jurisdiction by jurisdiction, city by city. 32 states have enabling legislation, so we are seeing further and further interest as programs like here in Colorado become more successful. Of course, that helps to motivate other folks that have enabling legislation but have yet to launch a program. From a project success point of view to date, on a national basis, there's been about 1,100 projects funded to date. And the aggregate amount of financing through C-PACE is about $500 million. So rough cut, $450,000, $500,000 per average project size. It is interesting to note that although Commercial PACE initially launched way back circa 2010, over 80% of that $500 million of funding amount has transpired since 2014. So it's a relatively new business model or new concept. And I can very much say, having a perspective from different markets around the country, I believe we're on a real beginning of an inflection point here where more and more building owners like Stu and the panelists that are here this evening, the folks that are really taking this tool and bringing it to market are getting more and more comfortable on the benefits and how to leverage it. So as it relates to Colorado, for all intents and purposes, the program here was started in 2016. There are currently, and it is a statewide program. Paul Scharfenberger joins us here from the Energy Office and the New Energy Improvement District, and this is largely his work. 19 counties, or my point was, excuse me, it's a statewide program, but counties have to opt in before participants can use it in that jurisdiction. And there are 19 counties that are currently participating in the program. 7 that we put in the bucket of in discussion, which is to say, generally, Paul's engaging with them, and we would rate them as some level of optimism when joining the program. If you think about an addressable market, those counties that are in already represent about 65% of the addressable commercial and industrial buildings in the state. So we certainly have a good scale of buildings in that market now. And the 7 counties that are in discussion represent about 30% of the building stock. So I believe it's reasonable, although Paul won't admit it, he's doing a stellar job on this. I think it's reasonable over the next 10, 12 months or so, where you're probably going to see 70+% of the buildings in the state that are available to take advantage of this program. So that is very good to see. Matt represents one of the capital providers that are active in the program. He's going to speak to the role of A&B here tonight, but there are now 22 capital providers that have been pre-qualified and are participating in the program, which is to say we have more money than we have projects. So hence, those of you on the project side, that's a strong hint. Having said that, there have been 70 project applications submitted to the program to date. 60 of those are in the project development phase, and they represent those that are far enough along in the pipeline to put a project value. It represents about $80 million in project value. There has been, through January, there's been 10 project closings, approximately $11 million in financing. So we are in the early days here, but as I expressed, with over 60 projects in the pipeline now, and you can certainly feel the momentum building, and we're very optimistic as the attendance here tonight shows more and more in the community are taking advantage of this. So, Grant.
Thank you, Brian. Next, we're going to hear from Grant Nelson with Integro. And Grant is a principal at Integro. They originated the loan and led the development of the PACE project here in this building. And Grant is also great at explaining in brief just what PACE is. So I'll turn it over to Grant.
Thank you, Katrina, and thank you to Energize Denver and the City of Denver for helping put this together. So by background, I'm a retail real estate broker for a number of years and developer. I got into PACE because of Kirsten. She drugged me into this about a year ago, telling me I had to do this. And she was right, because rarely in commercial real estate do we get a new widget. We've been working on the same models and same, Matt and Stu and everyone in real estate here can attest, the same models forever. And to have a new widget like PACE is really interesting and really cool. So the Energize Denver, I actually met Katrina when I was with ICSC, the Shopping Center Association, and they told us about Energize Denver. And what real estate people generally do when you tell them there's a new regulation is they freak out. Is that fair, Katrina? And they resist it and oppose it and act like it's going to kill them. and then they try and adopt into it, and then they get better at it. So we're in the resisting phase still, maybe, but 90% of the people responding to Energize Denver was great. The fact that that's more than any of the other cities, as we understand it, that we got there faster than others. So Denver is more accepting. And I think once people understand PACE, and I'll try and boil it down, it's basically you're trading out what you're spending in utilities for a voluntary tax to improve your building. That's as simply as I can put it, and I think that's as simple and as complicated as it really is. We have some really great buildings in Denver, and we have a lot of inefficient buildings in Denver. And this building was, what, a 91 Energy Star, but we still were able to find a lot of savings here, thanks to Celeste and Stu and the creativity that was brought to bear here. But the ability to bring the consultants into this that know what they're talking about and make the commercial real estate people merge with you, that's what I'll try and tell you, is commercial real estate people, as I said, will be resistant. But once they understand things and once they understand how interesting this program is and how great it is, I think the people will start to adapt into it and start taking it on. So real quick, and I know in some of the marketing materials we didn't really describe what we do, but Integro, so what Kirsten and I try and do, and Brad and Andy, we try and work with property owners to help them understand the process. We help them with the energy audits, helping them understand the energy audits. We help source the loans, and we help close the loans. So our commercial real estate background is a little different than a lot of people in this industry right now. So that's what we try and help real estate people understand a real estate project. So, and I'll do the same thing that Brian did. Paul Scharfenberger, if you'll raise your hand. So this is Paul's baby. Raise it higher than that. So those who don't know Paul, if you want to afterwards, go talk to him. This is his project, this is his baby, and we wouldn't have it without him, so I want to thank him. So, and with that, I'll turn it over to Celeste.
Thanks, Grant. Next, we'll hear from Celeste Cizik with Group 14. They completed the energy audit and energy improvements here on this project. Celeste is a professional engineer with 15 years of experience in the building systems field. She is the existing buildings team leader for Group 14 Engineering and has performed energy audits and retro-commissioning for millions of square feet of building area around the country. So Celeste is going to tell us how they saved 30% on the energy here in this building that already had an Energy Star score of 91.
All right, thanks, Katrina. Group 14 is a consulting engineering firm focused all on buildings, generally around energy, commissioning, sustainability. And our role on this project was to, first we performed the energy audit. So we started with getting, Stu's wish list of what they wanted to improve, but then also tried to dig a little bit deeper and to find some other ways to save energy that would help bring the total package of projects into a really favorable project in the end result. So things like this beautiful curtain wall can be packaged in with faster payback measures like LED lighting throughout the building. So that was one piece we did was the energy audit, which is a requirement of the PACE program, but can also provide a lot of value as a kind of independent third party. We're not working for a contractor. We're really just recommending and working with the owner for what's really best for the property. And then we're now moving into commissioning. So one of the measures that's being done here is a controls upgrade. So we'll help to make sure that all of the measures that are being funded through the program work properly and will end up getting the energy savings that we estimated, that we calculated in our report. So the end bottom line, when we are targeting how much they're going to save relative to how much the tax assessment, that equation really is what is expected in the end.
Great. Thanks, Celeste. Next, we'll hear from Kirsten Beck, who is also with Integro and helped lead this project forward. Kirsten.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Beck. I am a commercial real estate attorney by training. I've been practicing commercial real estate law for 2 decades in Colorado. So I got involved in PACE about 4 years ago. I met Paul and learned that we had a program and it hadn't been developed yet. And I thought for all my clients, what a great tool this would be. And then I realized there was a huge opportunity here to actually help people go through the program and learn how to maximize utilizing PACE for financing of energy efficient improvements in an economically efficient way. I was smart enough to bring Grant along and have him become my partner and help people really see this from a commercial real estate standpoint. And I was also smart enough to keep talking to Matt Baldner over here and saying to him why it is that our local community bank needed to participate in this. Brian will get into this a little bit more, but nationally we tend to have a lot of large equity lenders and providers, which is a great thing, and obviously that's how PACE market has moved so far. But one of the things that was really important from not just Stu's perspective, but I think from our perspective as well, was to try and engage with local lenders. And fortunately, Matt was willing to, with Sean Ribble, roll up their sleeves and figure out how to do this, which was not easy for a banker to learn how to do something new. So I would like to publicly say thank you for being willing to do that. And I can only imagine how difficult their meetings were to get all this stuff approved, but I'm just really, really happy that they were willing to participate in this program, because I think it's a great thing for all of us. So. Sorry. The banker talking.
Thank you, Kirsten. And next we'll hear from Matt Baldner with A&B Bank. Matt is the regional president for Denver Metro for A&B Bank. A&B is a privately held, locally owned bank focused on providing solutions crafted to the individual needs of its customers. So, Matt, tell us about your involvement in this project.
Well, after Kirsten took a little shot at me, she gets to hand me the mic, but she's not wrong. I saw her at ICSC in Las Vegas 2 years ago, and she ran up to me and she said, "I have to talk to you about something." And I said, "Call me when we're back in Denver." And she did immediately, and we went and had coffee, and she explained to me what this program was, and I said, "Good luck with that." But if you know her, she's about as persistent a person as you're ever going to meet, and she was hell-bent on us finding a way for us to lend into this. And so, I don't want to bore you with the whole process right now, but lending is lending. As Grant pointed out, this is the new widget. It was exciting. We wanted to be a part of it, and we found a way to do it. And we thought, oh, we're on the front end of this. Maybe we were the 12th one that got approved, and now there's 22, and that's what happens with banks. A few people kind of figure it out, and then everybody says, well, if they can figure it out, we'll figure it out. And that's going to be good for the market, too. There's going to be nice competition, and having a lot of opportunity for building owners to go out into the market and have sources of funds is just going to help the program.
Stu Ogilvie from Ogilvie Properties. It's great to have you here and have your perspective on this. So he's the president of Ogilvie Properties. Ogilvie Properties Incorporated is a value-add commercial real estate investor since 1996. They own 650,000 square feet of office, industrial, and retail properties in the Denver metro area. So tell us, why PACE?
Thank you, Katrina, and thanks for everyone coming here. I think you will agree that this space is going to be awesome someday. When Kirsten and Grant asked me to sponsor this with space, we didn't have any windows up. So luckily we got these windows up last week, and so we have heat and lights and things like that. But you're sitting in a space right now. I want to talk a little bit about this space, and then I'll get into why we did this. You're sitting in a space right now. These were racquetball courts right here. And on the other side, there was a basketball court. If you look around the area here, it was if you remember, some of you have been here for a while in Denver, like I have, and probably some natives here. The Ryder family was once a great developer of commercial and multifamily real estate, and you'll notice all the buildings in this area kind of look the same, and there's apartment buildings, there's some office buildings, whatever. And the Best Buy center there was called the Ryder Manor Hotel in the old days, and this space was the athletic club for Denver, except for maybe the Denver Athletic Club. But this was an incredible athletic club. But over the years, this building was built in 1977, And over the years, it came in disrepair. And for people in the know, this was a secret free place to go work out. And matter of fact, my nephew, when I told him we bought the building and we were going to do what we were going to do, was furious because they had a basketball league up here. There were 200 card keys out to people that didn't have anything to do with the building. So people were using this facility. Anyway, that's a little side story there. It was kind of funny. So this space is about 18,000 feet. The reason why we bought the building is because we thought we could transform this space into office space. And at the end of the day, after all the demolition, after putting in the windows and the HVAC and all the mechanical systems and the lighting and what have you, we're going to be all-in cost of about $3.3 million. And we were prepared to do that before I even met Kirsten and Grant. And if you look at $3.3 million, it's $180 a foot. And if anyone knows anything about building new buildings, it's about $400 a foot to build a building. And we're building a building on top of another building, basically. This is 18,000-foot building we basically took from scratch and making it into new Class A space. And I think we're going to get lease rates commensurate with new construction type lease rates. So we're very excited about this. So Kirsten and Grant came into my office one day and explained this PACE program. And basically, I think you've heard this a few times already, is you're converting the savings that you get in energy, those monies, those dollars that you would pay to the utility company, and you convert that money into energy-saving capital improvements. And that is basically it. And very quickly in that meeting, I realized that we're doing 80% of these improvements that would qualify for the PACE program anyway. And we were prepared to use equity money or conventional financing, which we would have to pay back if we were to sell. And that's been the problem with owners of vintage buildings, is that the capital improvements to do these energy-saving type capital improvements, the costs, you would never get the return. You would never, to get a return, let's just say, for this curtain wall was 25 years or something, one net Celeste or something like that. For the lighting, it's 3 years. So the key is to match up these different improvements and use the PACE program with banks that are willing to amortize this over 20 years, and the energy savings match up with the costs of the tax increase. The other great thing about this is that, you know, a fair taxing system is when the payer is the beneficiary. And the payer in this instance will be the tenants through the operating expenses, but because the taxes will increase, but their utilities will decrease, and it should be a net zero sum at the end of the day. And that's what we strive for, and that's what Group 14 helped us achieve. We would eliminate some improvements and increase others just to be able to balance out that operating expense, so we didn't have an effect on our net operating income. The other important thing is, so at the end of the day, it pays for itself. And then it stays with the building because private owners generally don't keep buildings for 20 years. They'll keep them for 3 to 10 years. And so therefore, the improvements stay with the building, and the payment for those improvements stay with the building over time. And then lastly, the city is giving everyone a grade on their efficiency.
on their energy efficiency. In my opinion, that's just the start. And I don't know this for a fact, but it's going to be not too long from now, the city's going to impose on the building owners to hit a number, I think. I think there are some cities that do that already out there in the country. And now that we have a vehicle, this mechanism to make those improvements, I don't think there will be as big a pushback as if it was an imposed system without a mechanism to make those improvements and to complete them. One more thing is more and more tenants are looking at these grades. And there's going to be national tenants who will say, I'm not going into a building unless they have a 90% efficiency rating, or whatever the number is. And it'll start with the national tenants, and it'll percolate down to the local tenants over time. And if you're not doing these improvements, you'll be compelled to, because you'll have empty buildings at the end of the day. So the newer buildings will automatically be efficient. It's these older buildings that we do in this city where we try to take a vintage building and make it, a Class A, Class B, raise the level of quality, raise the rents, hopefully we can, to make it all pencil out, that this helps us get to the energy efficiency numbers that is necessary in this new world that we're entering into. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Stu. So we want to make this interactive. I have a few questions to start for our panelists, but we'd love to take questions from you as well. So I'll kick it off, and then we'll open it to the group. So Grant, can you describe how PACE affects the balance sheet for a building? Why does it make sense for property owners to proceed with a PACE project? How does it improve property value?
It's one of the discussions that we've had with not only Stu, but a lot of the other owners. A couple owners in the room we're working on PACE loans with. So one of the challenging parts of PACE is the first lien holder consent and the conversation that we have with those lenders, and it goes with the balance sheet. And essentially where Matt and Velco and some of the other lenders who are not only PACE lenders but first lien holder consents, you're getting an improvement on your property to your collateral that you're not necessarily paying for. And I think Stu hit on a great point that a fair system is the ones who the beneficiaries of it are the ones paying for it. And that's really the interesting part about PACE and balance sheet is it doesn't show up on your balance sheet, and the tenants who are the beneficiaries of the more energy improvement, of the energy improvements and the cost savings are the ones who pay the tax. So in a lot of cases, the projects we're working on with Group 14 and some of the other consultants in the room, there are one-for-one savings. And in some places, there's actually cost increase. But when you look at it over a period of time, if you're bringing down the overall costs and cost increase at 1.9% a year, you're actually saving money over time. So it's a great thing for the balance sheet for buildings, in my opinion.
And Brian, can you tell us a little bit about how this project compares to some others that you've seen, and any observations about types of PACE projects in the market?
Sure. I'd say Stu's projects skew towards the more comprehensive projects that we've seen. I think it's characteristic of what Grant and Kirsten sort of came to the table with, the value proposition at the right time that Stu was considering this project. But as I mentioned, on a sort of national average, these projects tend to be about $500,000 in size. So you can think of the complexity and the multi-measures that align with that. What I would say here in Colorado, because of the lower or more moderate energy costs as compared to some other markets in the country, it really is incumbent upon the project developers. So when Celeste was describing the work that they do, it really is incumbent here to get projects that are going to pencil well enough to motivate a Stu to get to yes on a project like this. It's bringing in multiple measures that, again, the long payback measures like the windows have to be paid by some other measures, and you don't have as much utility savings to work with. So the thing I also would note that is, I think, quite remarkable about the Denver market and is characterized again by Integro and Group 14 is there's just a lot of core competency of energy consulting businesses, design businesses. We don't often see that in other markets, and it's a real strength of the market. And I think, from Stu's point of view, there's a lot of resources to draw on here in that professional expertise that is not always available. So in sum, I would say the projects are a little more comprehensive than we've seen. That's really encouraging to see, and hopefully that's a signal to Stu's peers that this is a real viable path to take advantage of. And I think the support level services, I wouldn't underweight that. These projects generally don't happen on their own. I don't know Stu that well, but I know he owns a bunch of buildings. He's a busy guy. Would he have taken the time on his own, to go and scope out a project like this and then the program without, Grant and Kirsten's shepherding him through the process? My guess is probably not. So those are sort of the things I would say that were unique from our vantage point.
Thanks. And Celeste, can you tell us a little bit more about the details of this project and just how it was that you achieved 30% energy savings?
Sure, yeah, we've touched on a few of the energy conservation measures, but I'd say one of the really exciting things for these types of projects, I've been doing energy audits for a long time, and often things like the envelope and the roof, you're like, well, yes, you need new windows, yes, you need a new roof, but it's just way too expensive. And as a line item measure, often those measures don't pencil out. So, over 20 years or even hundreds of years to pay back a specific measure, like a new curtain wall. But in this type of project with PACE, we're able to package those together. So some of the measures were do the new windows all on these levels, a new roof, upgraded controls throughout the building. Also just kind of behind the scenes, but things like how the garage exhaust system is controlled. It seems like a kind of minor thing happens down there, but it actually uses a lot of energy to bring in a lot of fresh air, heat it up. So it was part of our energy audit to dig in. LED lighting it's a kind of an amazing thing right now. The costs have come down so much that before, kind of, if you're already upgraded to T8, then you're kind of like, well, LED would be such a long payback, but the costs have come down so significantly. The LED lighting itself is saving $50,000 out of close to $70,000 total. So the LED lighting on most of these projects that we're doing is a huge chunk of the savings and a really good payback. So I think on that one, it's often less than a 5-year payback for the LED lighting. So it can really help pay for these bigger improvements. And LED lighting, it's a sure thing. It's going to save demand. It's going to save energy. Hopefully they use the light similar to how they used them or turn them off more. But as long as those kind of similar things stay in place, it can't go wrong. Like, you're going to get the savings. There's not a lot of risk in the investment at that point.
Thanks. And Kirsten, what was the most difficult part of getting the local lender to participate in this program, and any lessons learned on obtaining first lien holder consent?
Well, I had to deal with Matt Baldner, so obviously we already know that problem. So we had to do two aspects of it. First is all first lien holders do have to consent to the program. That's a requirement of the program. It makes sense because Matt took a first lien or a superior tax lien position by his repayment is through the county taxes. And because of that, for him taking the first lien holder or taking a superior tax lien position, you have to get first lien holder consent. So that was my job. Stu closed on not just this project at the same time. We did another one in Cherry Creek. And it was a lot of work. It's a big education process to explain to a bank and then to get through what I would kindly say, since I am a lawyer, to then get through the lawyers, I think was the hardest part, to get them to understand why this works from, say, from a first lien holder standpoint, and then getting to the next piece of then dealing with a transaction and getting even A and B to know how this deal actually works and make it so that it fits within what you would expect from a PACE transaction. So I would say it was a lot of work, but what is great is that we have a program here in Colorado that is going to have a lot of lenders, local lenders, that are going to participate in it. So it's definitely worth the effort.
Thank you. And Matt, turning to you, how was the process on your end to get this project approved at your bank? What hurdles did you have to go through, and what lessons did you learn?
First, I want to point out that she wrote all the prompt questions. So she's totally set me up. But
Very true.
we have a little bit of an advantage at A&B in that our Chief Corporate Credit Officer, Ken Myers, who's actually here, I'm not trying to embarrass you, but if you raise your hand. So he's been involved with CPACE for 3 years. So we had a little bit of an inside track to understand the way the program worked. So that was helpful. But it's like every deal when you're trying to underwrite it, you want to understand, and a lot of banks, the first thing they think is, okay, what's my collateral? Well, your collateral is an income stream. And so you got to get your head around that. And then you got to get your head around the interest rate risk, because it's a 20-year fixed rate deal. And so you've got to be comfortable that you have those pools of money available to you. And most banks do. They can pull off a pool of money and say, yeah, we want to go play in this program. But then not all deals are created equal, and that's the same thing with PACE. We had a wonderful opportunity presented to us to do deals with Stu, who is a great property owner, has been very successful. And so we knew the quality of the project, and that helps as well. Being part of a loan committee bank, some banks are loan committees, some banks are signature banks. You then get to go educate everybody else on your committee, which is part of the process as well. The great part about it is once you go through that and you go through with all the attorneys and everybody learns, you have a well-established process, and the next one and the next one and the next one get they just get a lot more simple. So we're excited about the opportunities that are out there and appreciate some of the deal flow that we're seeing right now. And congratulations, because we're happy to be part of this. And it's gone exactly as advertised. I think these were closed the last week of December and have gone quite well. I should point out one other thing to think about when you're going out trying to get this type of financing. During the construction phase, there is a guarantee involved. So once we get through and we're working and we get the final energy, all the costs are certified and it's all good, then the guarantee goes away. And so we had to get our head around that and how that worked in the documents. And so that was kind of the last hurdle. And having a great team like this just made it really easy.
Thanks, Matt. And one question for Stu. What did you like about the process, and what could be improved? And would you do it again?
Yeah, I don't think I properly stated what I really liked about it is $3.3 million for this project. And then these two walked in the door, and then it became $2.1 million because our basis got lowered so much, and we were able to push off quite a bit of the cost of this project off our balance sheet, like Grant said. So, I'm an investment company, so what I like the most is, the money part of it. So that was exciting. And you know what? That's the legislation, or, I know Kirsten was part of that, and there's a whole group of government people. They're really wise in how they set this up, because that's the way you're going to get things done, and how we're going to help the environment, frankly. I mean, that's just a fact. So what I didn't like about it is I think Grant and Kirsten walked in my office in March, and it took 9 months. But I think when you're trying to pioneer something, that's just the way it is, you know. And it was. I just want to thank everybody on this panel, because everybody, it was a real team effort, and we like each other. So it was fun, and we got it done. And Matt, you did a hell of a job getting it through the bank, and we finally agreed to do it with you. And thanks everyone.
That was the hardest part. Getting you to pick us.
So anyway.
Okay, with that, let's take some questions from the audience. Please identify yourself and when you start your question, and speak up so everyone can hear you. We don't have mics to pass around, but yeah, let's take some questions. I saw some hands earlier.
My name is Michael. My question is for Stu and Integra. Would you guys say that there is a certain sector or part of the commercial real estate market that is better positioned to take advantage of PACE, or worse positioned to take advantage of PACE? Are there certain owners or certain building types, certain lease structures that are focused ahead of the PACE?
I can start. Kirsten has told me that from the ground up construction, you can use the PACE program. But it's very appropriate to owners like me who are, you know, I wouldn't call us fix and flip, but I would call us, you know, we're trying to take a building and upgrade it. And therefore the systems, there's a lot of money involved in improving the systems. And we're naturally, if you put in new systems, naturally energy is going to be saved by those new systems. So kind of owners like me. And lease structure, did you ask about lease? The best lease structure is triple net, because gross leases, the owner will be stuck with some of the cost of the tax increase. But triple net leases are passed on to the tenant. The tenant actually benefits from the utility reduction, so it should be a net zero. But so the triple net leases would be that.
And the only thing I would add to that is the building size really helps. I mean, the size of this building's a great example. The other building that Stu did was almost 100,000 square feet. It certainly helps to have a larger size because of the fact that then you have more savings opportunities to then offset and really address some of the building capital systems. So that certainly is a sweet spot. And office and, you know, any type of commercial building could benefit from it.
So sorry, I have a 2-point question here, a little bit in the weeds, but one of the biggest obstacles is, or at least from my owner's perception is getting the financing company to agree to give up their lien rights on the property. So what's your success rate on getting, you know, finance companies in giving that up? And then secondly, you sort of answered the question about triple nets are the better model. I have a modified gross property, so my question was going to be, you know, as a percentage, if there is one, what's the percentage of the increase in the taxes? Because a lot of my tenants have caps on, you know, the amount that they have to pay back in taxes. So, you know, if it's a 10% increase and I have a 3%, you know, cap on taxes, then that's going to affect how much I can charge those tenants back. So, thank you. And also, how do I convince my owner to go along with this program? Because Mike Krasinski had connected you and me together, so I didn't know who you were amongst all of the people. I guess we need to talk, so.
So on first part of your question on the mortgage holder consent to the
priority lien, there's a few points to make there. I guess the first part that we see that is often misunderstood is this is a non-accelerating obligation. So unlike a typical commercial mortgage, when a property is sold, as Stu was mentioning earlier, the outstanding balance does not accelerate and come due. So from a risk point of view, and I gather Matt and his credit committee that he was talking about was recently reviewing this, it's really only the amount in arrears that would be at risk dollars. That's the first point. Secondly, by coincidence, the greater the savings of the building, as a result of the project, as Celeste was describing, and therefore the more cash flow that comes into the capital budget, you have a easier conversation with that incumbent mortgage holder, right? So as Stu was sort of describing his project and the economics as he was looking at it, majority of the projects that we see in the PACE world produce a positive cash flow impact on the net operating income of the building. So if you put your mortgage holder hat on, what does that mean to the mortgage holder? One, my building owner now has more money to pay back the core mortgage, so I actually have a reduction in repayment risk from my borrower. And secondly, because of the improvements that are, Celeste was describing this building, saving approximately 30% on the utility expense line, that drops to net operating income, and the value of the building is, at some capitalization rate. So that speaks to collateral. So those are generally the three core themes of discussion you want to have with the existing mortgage holder. One, it's not accelerating. Two, what's the cash flow impact to the property? If in fact it is positive cash flow, not all projects have to be to close, but the majority of them are, then you have a corresponding uptick in the collateral value as well. And that's the basis of the win-win-win. Right? You have a win for the building owner, you have a win for the incumbent mortgage holder because they have less repayment risk, they have greater collateral in their worst case scenario, and then assuming that the existing mortgage holder doesn't fund the building, as in this case, you have a new capital provider that steps up, Matt's A&B in this scenario, and they have a win because they have a funding opportunity. So that's the unique scenario around the PACE projects, and a lot of it has to do with the work that I was describing before, that I think Denver is particularly well suited, just given the level of professionals that you have to draw here. In other words, what Grant and Kirsten have done in forming Integro and that sort of advisory service and the technical depth that folks at Celeste Group 14 have. You're able to get good level of analysis to get comfort on those issues.
One other quick way to look at this that we've been successful with, as Celeste did, the LED lights is a huge win. I mean, it's a massive savings. And if you have a building, find one of the good lighting providers, Candle 3 as one of our sponsors, or another one, and have a lighting audit done, and it'll give you the 30-40% of your cost savings just in the lights. Then it can tell you how big your loan capacity is, because you can figure out how much per square foot. And by the way, all you consultants, instead of talking about in payback years, Stu, tell me if I'm true, get in $1 per square foot. Us real estate folk, we're not that smart, so you have to say $1 per square foot for us to understand it. Sorry. But if you can figure that out, get a lighting audit, and that can give you your first indicator of how big your loan capacity is, and then you know what kind of bucket of money you have to play with. So.
Let's take one more question if there's one in the audience.
John from Haynes Mechanical Engineering Manager. We help facilitate some of these financial performance and the contracting and setting up the project. As far as from an energy audit perspective, how much detail? It's not a requirement, from my understanding, but is it a level 1 audit? Is it level 2? How in detail do you go? Because like in performance contracting, the savings have to be guaranteed. In CPACE, they don't. So how does that kind of compare?
Yeah, we perform an ASHRAE level 2 audit. And my understanding is it is a requirement of the program. Is that not? Yeah. No.
From a programmatic point of view, the way that the technical guidelines are set up is the logic is the audit level should be commensurate with the complexity of the project. So for a project like this, of course, when, as Stu was describing, you have $3 million worth of construction, and you have, substantial interactivity, that may be caused by the different measures. Usually, you would see on a building like this a level 2 audit. But if it was a project, let's say it was, like-for-like equipment replacement, single measure projects and so forth, generally we would just see a level 1 study.
Yeah, so as part of that level 2 audit, it is pretty detailed. It's, I'd say, not quite level 3 or the same level that you would do for a guaranteed savings like you would for a performance contract project. So everything's kind of spreadsheet calculations, but really detailed. So weather-dependent spreadsheet calculations, getting a lot of information on the building. So kind of, in that level 2, it is kind of short of, we didn't do like a full building energy model. But we did take into consideration impacts of measures with each other. So we feel really good about our numbers.
Thanks. With that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. You can ask questions afterwards of all the panelists. We have a case study on the table by the entrance that summarizes all the numbers on this project. It also has a short summary of Stu's other project. And so grab one of those on your way out. And thank you all for being here. If every building in Denver found energy, we're all on our way to our goal of reducing emissions 80% by 2050. So really excited to learn about this project. Thank you all for being here, and go forward and do more of these projects. All right, thank you.